Thank you for joining us for this special edition of KPBS News. I'm Maya Trabulsi. San Diego is now at a level of reopening we have not seen during the pandemic. We are now in the orange tier, which is less restrictive than the purple we were in. The orange tier allows a higher capacity for restaurants, gyms, and places of worship. Bars can reopen for outdoor service. Nightly business curfews are gone, and so is the capacity limit for retail. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman spent some time in the gas lamp on the first day of the orange tier.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, we get to increase our capacity indoors by 25%, and I think it gives consumers a little bit more confidence.
Just outside Petco Park, City Tacos owner Gerald Torres is opening up a new location that was more than a year in the making.
Basically, it was scheduled to open in March of last year, but then COVID hit, and we're blessed to be able to open now.
Now things are different. Fans can be seated inside Petco Park, and now that we're in the state's orange reopening tier, the Padres can increase their stadium capacity to 33%.
There's a lot of positive energy and positive attitude in our industry that things are opening back up, that we can all get back to work and make a living, support our families, support our staff.
Brant Crenshaw owns Social Tap, which is also right next to Petco Park.
I can't wait till we get completely opened up, but you know, this isn't a bad alternative.
Now he can increase his indoor capacity, which has allowed him to bring back more staff, but things are not entirely back to normal.
This year, you know, a little different, you know, butts in every seat. You know, you're not standing at the bar, you're not mingling around, you know, safety protocols are a little different. I'll tell you what, I'll take this over last year, because last year was, we were in a lockdown.
He and others say they're feeling a renewed sense of optimism, especially now that the governor has announced a target date of June 15th to lift nearly all COVID-19 restrictions.
It's the first time that we would have a hard date to actually plan around.
Jess Pierce is the manager of Ale Tales Taproom in the East Village, which opened just a couple months before the pandemic first hit.
Just a constant adaptation. We miss people at the bar, we miss strangers meeting each other at the bar, but it'll eventually get back there.
This spot is less than half a mile away from Petco Park, and Pierce is hoping to see some Padre fans this season, especially now that we're in the orange reopening tier.
Let's go to the left.
But business owners say they have to gradually scale up their operations.
It's still a slow process. People are gaining that confidence to go out and you know, enjoy lunches and enjoy dinners, and we have to grow along with it. If you don't, you know, your numbers are not going to be right, and you put the business in jeopardy.
Even with progress, California Restaurant Association President Jot Condi is estimating 30% of eateries statewide will shut their doors because of the pandemic.
We hear every day that goes by, there's restaurants that are just, on the edge, and many of them fall off. So we fully expect that in between now and June 15, there will be more restaurants that just have to throw in the towel.
Businesses may also see a late night boost in sales too. Effective today, the county's 10 p.m. curfew for restaurants and bars is officially gone. Here outside Petco Park, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And as Matt mentioned in that story, the state's COVID-19 tier system might be winding down. Here's some of Governor Gov Newsom's announcement this week, assuming trends continue to go in the right direction.
We are announcing today that on June 15th, we will be moving beyond the blueprint, and we'll be getting rid of the colored tiers. We'll be moving past the dimmer switch. We'll be getting rid of the blueprint as you know it today, with the expectation of an abundance of doses coming in from the federal government through the end of this month and into May. We can confidently say by June 15th that we can start to open up as business as usual, subject to ongoing mask wearing and ongoing vigilance.
And according to the state's COVID-19 dashboard, about 1 in 4 Californians are now fully vaccinated. That is similar to our county. Case numbers and deaths continue to trend down, even as some states are seeing a surge. And this weekend in National City, look for the lowriders. They'll be part of an effort to get more people vaccinated in a place where numbers are lagging. KPBS reporter Melissa May shows us how these classic cars are working with the city to promote access.
National City is 2 weeks into the 100-day COVID-19 vaccine campaign. National City Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis says the community response has been positive.
It's been amazing. We've heard that we are driving demand.
So how do you do better? By using one of the most iconic symbols of family in this community, the lowrider.
Lowrider is part of the Chicano Latino culture. It's not just a vehicle that you see out on display. It's art. It's expression of, family members that they may have lost or respect.
The United Lowrider Coalition will showcase their lowriders on the 2nd and 4th Saturdays of the month at the Las Palmas Elementary School, where there's a walk-up, first-come, first-serve vaccine clinic.
It's a huge part of the culture in National City.
Jovita Arellano, a volunteer with the Lowrider Coalition, says the group will support the city many of them call home.
It'll draw more people to the event, especially the Latino community. They'll feel more confident in saying, wow, you know what, I think I should go do this for me, for my family.
National City Fire Chief Frank Parra knows what lowriders mean to the city.
There's another group of folks that, have grown up in the community. A lot of folks enjoy, the vehicles, the culture, and it just brings it home for them.
From now until the beginning of July, pending vaccine availability, there will also be a walk-up clinic at the National City Library every Thursday. Melissa May, KPBS News.
Coming up, some of the social media tools for finding local vaccine appointments. It can be a challenge to sort through all the locational closures and supply issues. We will show you some of the local accounts popping up on Twitter that are giving real-time updates for our local vaccine situation. Monday brings a huge step forward for kids and their parents in San Diego. San Diego Unified expects half of its students to return to in-person classes. Those numbers will only go up as more families get comfortable with sending kids back to school. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong shows us how the county's largest district is getting ready for the big day.
Last month, San Diego Unified distributed parent surveys to gauge how many students would return to in-person learning on April 12th. So far, about 2/3 of parents have responded to the survey. Among those parents, nearly 3/4 are comfortable sending their students back to campuses. Richard Barrera is the president of the San Diego Unified School Board.
We're also ready for, surprises, next week. We may have students show up, that we weren't expecting, and we may have students who signed up to be in person, not show up. So, the schools are going to be ready for, for whoever shows up.
Getting an accurate number of returning students will be important for determining how many days a week students can be on campus. If a high number of students want to come back, social distancing rules require they be split into 2 smaller groups, with each group on campus twice a week. But if fewer students return, they can be in the classroom up to 4 days a week.
Right now, it looks like about 3/4 of our schools will be offering 4 days. And the remainder of our schools will either be at 2 days or they're a combination of, there may be some grade levels at the school that are at 4 days and other grade levels are at 2 days.
Barrera said district officials will try their best to be flexible if more students decide to come back in the coming weeks or months. But if on April 12th, a particular school allows 4 days of instruction per week, the district does not plan to reduce the number of in-person days at that school to accommodate more students.
We want to make that happen, but if that creates, a real, challenge space-wise, we do not want to move from 4 days to 2 days.
Barrera said principals are working to get all parents to respond to the survey, but officials will assume that parents who don't respond to the survey are deciding to keep their students at home. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
A big announcement from San Diego's top public universities. UC San Diego will be back to normal in the fall and plans to offer mostly in-person instruction. San Diego State University has similar plans. It says it's expanding on-campus activities and will welcome back thousands or more students to on-campus housing. Universities expect the vast majority of its student body and staff will be fully vaccinated in time for the new academic year. In about a week, vaccine access will expand to anyone aged 16 and up in San Diego County, and other places are already there, including Riverside County just to our north. Caitlin Thrope caught up with some of the first to get their shots.
I'm from Eastville, California, and I'm 16 years old.
Hunter and his father, Jason O'Brien, wasted no time to get their vaccines when Riverside County opened up appointments to those 16 and older.
This morning, I read the news article that it had opened up for 16, and I jumped on the website immediately, and Within 4 minutes, I was able to get me and my son both in here. So it was the closest one, and I went, I can get it today, we can get it done, and this place has Pfizer, so I was all really happy.
Right now, Pfizer is the only vaccine approved for people 16 and older. Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are for those 18 and older. Anyone 16 and 17 years old must be accompanied by a parent or legal guardian in order to receive their shot.
I was really excited because next week we're supposed to go back to school for 4 days a week. And so there's going to be a lot more kids there.
Hunter wasn't the only teenager eager to get a coronavirus shot.
Jumped right to my PC when I had the chance, grabbed my phone, and didn't waste it that much time at all.
18-year-old Brian Paoletta got his first dose of the Moderna vaccine at the Indio Fairgrounds.
I was excited, just being able to say that I have my vaccine and can actually go places that I haven't been able to for the past year.
We also spoke with several people in their 20s after receiving their first dose of the Moderna vaccine.
Honestly, it's a bit of a relief because it's something you don't have to worry about. I'm really glad that I was able to get the opportunity to get it.
According to Riverside County Public Health, expanding the age range opens up vaccines to hundreds of thousands of Riverside County residents.
I feel it's important so that everything can start getting back to normal and we can go places and return to normal life.
And that was Caitlin Thrope reporting. One more note on the vaccine and kids. Pfizer wants to lower the minimum age to 12. The company has asked the FDA to authorize use of the two-shot vaccine to those aged 12 to 15. Pfizer officials say a trial shows its vaccine has 100% efficacy for that age group. If approved, Pfizer would be the first company to expand its access in this way. How long did it take you to book a vaccine appointment? Whether it's with your provider, a county super site, or a pharmacy, there's a good chance you had to navigate multiple websites to secure your shot. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer tells us about some social media accounts that are trying to make it easier.
Eligibility and demand for vaccines always seems to outpace the supply. So some people with technology backgrounds are trying to help others book that elusive appointment. They're using Twitter to create automated accounts or bots that do the bulk of the appointment searching for you. One of the accounts is called San Diego Vaccine Bot, which was created in early March by the Bay Area-based cybersecurity engineer Omar Darwish. He has multiple bot accounts for large population centers in California, all of which scan for appointments on the MyTurn platform.
This bot does that checking for you all the time, once every 5 minutes, and if it finds something, it'll let you know. It'll let you know that there's something for you to scoop up. It's not perfect, but it does take away the burden of you having to check and hope that there's something that you can pick up.
Another automated Twitter account is called VaxSpotter. It focuses on finding pharmacies that have appointments, according to its creator, Kyle Shannon.
If you're able to help people who need a vaccine, especially coming up to the 15th, will be open to everybody. People who still need one that are, in the risk group. That's, getting them appointments quickly, especially people who can't sit there all day and refresh. They have kids or they have, jobs where they can't sit down on the computer. That is, makes it all worth it and really great.
And the different COVID-19 bot creators work together. That's demonstrated in yet another Twitter profile called San Diego COVID Vaccine Bot, which often shares appointment information from the other two accounts.
The single goal is to try to get as many shots in arms as possible because it benefits all of us. It doesn't really matter how we get there as long as we get there. So if it increases visibility, by all means, we try to, surface information that one of the bots has that another might not. So you might see some retweets from each of the accounts, retweeting the other.
To find and use the Twitter bots, search the internet for @COVIDVaccineSD, @COVAXSD, and @VAXSpotter. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Across California, more than 200 people have died from COVID-19 in state prisons. The Donovan prison in Otay Mesa has been among the most deadly. iNewsSource investigative reporter Mary Plummer has uncovered new details about inmates there who died of the virus.
Shortly before Christmas, Donovan State Prison was dealing with a major outbreak. About 20% of people incarcerated there were known to have COVID-19. Over the next 5 weeks, 18 inmates died from the virus. These are some of the men who lost their lives. They range in age from 48 to 83. iNewsSource uncovered that 3 were found dead or dying in their cells of COVID-19. They were all 65 or older with pre-existing medical conditions. The others died at hospitals. 5 families of those who died told us the prison did not notify them that their relatives were ill, only that they had died. Donovan is tied for the 3rd highest death rate in the state from the coronavirus. UC Hastings law professor Hadar Aviram reviewed our findings. She says the quality of care provided to incarcerated people during the pandemic is hard to comprehend.
We have to keep in mind that even if you believe in harsh punishment and you believe that people should do the time if they committed the crime, nobody was actually sentenced to die of COVID in their cell.
Through a spokesperson, Donovan's warden declined multiple interview requests for this story. In a statement, Corrections Department officials said they've worked tirelessly to respond to this public health emergency with the goal of protecting prison staff and inmates. They also said inmates are screened twice a day by medical staff. Statewide, nearly 50,000 people in prisons have contracted the virus and more than 200 have died. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Mary Plummer.
And this story was co-reported by Jill Castellano at iNewsSource, an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. Nearly $100 million is up for grabs thanks to a special rent relief program by the city of San Diego. The money will help low-income families stay in their homes. Melissa May says people are being urged to apply and local schools are being used to help get the word out.
Applications for the COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program have been open since March 15th. Mayor Todd Gloria and other local leaders urged at-risk and low-income families to apply for the federal relief money.
We have an $83 million fund available to help folks actually pay down that back rent, pay down those past utility bills, and get back on with things, particularly as our economy reopens.
Councilmember Sean Elo Rivera calls the program the most significant assistance program in the city's history. He recalled his own childhood experience with housing instability.
That really disrupted my education, my siblings' education. I know it created incredible stress and impact on my parents as they were going through their own health and economic turmoil at the time, which had led us into that situation.
The San Diego Unified School District is partnering with the San Diego Housing Commission to help distribute thousands of flyers about the housing program at 80 schools that serve as meal distribution sites. Richard Barrera is president of the San Diego Unified School Board.
As we know, over the last year, a student's home has also become the student's classroom. And so when students have to experience instability, when their parents are worrying about being able to pay the rent, believe me, it impacts that student's ability to concentrate on education.
Applications are being taken at covidassistance.sdhc.org. Or if you don't have internet access, call 619-535-6921. Melissa May, KPBS News.
And priority will be given to households with 50% or less of the city's median income or with at least one household member who has been unemployed for 90 days. Immigration status does not affect whether a household qualifies for help. San Diego's entry to the orange tier means a lot of big attractions are expanding their business, and that includes SeaWorld, which is about to fully reopen. The park will allow visitors to go on rides and enter all indoor attractions starting on Monday, and it will be the first time in over a year that they'll have everything open, even though there's still a cap on attendance. There will still be rules for mask wearing and social distancing, but for now, only California residents can attend. The Old Globe Theater in Balboa Park isn't reopening as quickly, but the wheels are in motion. Operators announced it will begin a phased approach to live performances in June. State guidelines will be followed. The Old Globe's last performance with an audience was way back in September of 2019. Exact details on programming and safety measures are still being worked out. Up the road, a Southern California summer staple is planning its comeback. LA's Hollywood Bowl will reopen more than a year after the pandemic shut down its concerts and other live events. The first show will be in May for a crowd of about 4,000 healthcare workers. More information on the summer schedule and performers will be announced in May. San Diego's event industry is a multi-billion-dollar operation. Everyone from wedding planners to caterers are desperate to get back to work. Local leaders say they want to help by waiving some of the usual costs of doing business. Matt Hoffman has the story.
We've waited our turn, but now it's time for our industry to be opened up.
I do.
After news from state officials that private gatherings like weddings and other events can increase capacity with negative tests or vaccinated guests, now a push to have permitting fees waived for an industry that has been crippled by the pandemic.
The events industry brought 2.7 million visitors and $3.5 billion in spending to San Diego in 2019. 2020 obviously tells a very different story, but we are in a position now as we come out of COVID-19, as we come out of this pandemic, we have to intentionally support and help those industries that have been hardest hit.
Supervisor Nathan Fletcher is hoping to waive some fees for events using county services, something that event operators like Laura McFarland say can really help.
It's been incredibly hard. I have an 18-year-old son who's going into college, and we've used his college fund to survive. So we're not sure how we're going to continue paying for his college. I've saved 20 years. Having these fees waived, when you're looking at, do I do an event, do I not? If you can save anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000, that could be the difference of you deciding to go forward.
McFarland also leads the San Diego Event Coalition, a group that since last year has been fighting for a seat at the table to negotiate safe reopening guidelines for large events.
Our numbers are doing much better. We want a path back, which every other industry has been given a path back on the tier system.
Fletcher's proposal will be taken up by the entire board and, if approved, could save the event industry a collective $2 million.
It's just decimated our industry. It's really unfortunate, but we're ready to come back.
Aaron Bianchi with Bright Event Rentals and the California Association for Private Events says the permitting proposal is good news and says the state allowing larger group gatherings is huge for the local wedding industry.
Before it was 3 households, no eating, no drinking for a reception. And that, that's not the wedding that many people have dreamed of.
Bianchi says many couples moved their weddings to Arizona during the pandemic as that state was more open. She says her and others have been negotiating event reopening guidelines with state officials for months.
It's got to be economically viable for our wedding planners, our vendors, everyone, in order to come back. It's got to make sense for them.
The new guidelines hit April 15th. In the state's red reopening tier, private events can have up to 200 guests if they've been vaccinated or recently tested negative. Capacity then will continue to increase as our local situation improves. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And the pandemic changed the nature of how we work for so many of us. Vanessa Yurkovich tells us how some people would rather keep working from home even after the pandemic is over.
That's it. That's my commute.
For Tom Martinez and millions of other Americans, this has been the morning commute to work. In homes across America, work from home is the new way to work.
Do you feel like you were able to do your job from home?
Oh, absolutely. Pretty much everything that I do relies on digital tools. So I'm in front of a computer 90% of the time anyway.
Martinez works for a major publisher. In a year, a lot has changed. He's moving to upstate New York. His 11-year-old son, Logan, who has ADHD, is thriving in virtual learning.
I'm super happy.
And he loves working from home.
At first, I wasn't sure what that would mean, but I think now I've seen that there are a lot of benefits to not having to perform tasks in such a very compartmentalized and rigid order.
But now he says his company, like others, is figuring out how to bring employees back into the office. Citigroup says they hope to have 30% of their U.S. workforce in the office this summer, while New York City plans to bring back 80,000 city employees starting next month.
Good girl.
Taylor Segmiller, a psychotherapist, says she could be back in the office within 30 days.
What is your level of comfort and anxiety?
I would say definitely some anxiety, definitely some anticipation.
For the past year, Segmiller has seen her patients virtually. and says she's shared concerns with her employer about a return to in-person work.
We've talked about some of the concerns with being in very small rooms, face-to-face. Sometimes those rooms don't have windows. A lot of times they're not very well ventilated. You know, it's trying to find the balance between what is the best care for somebody versus what is the safest for everybody.
But even as vaccinations ramp up, 55% of adults say returning to pre-pandemic life right now would be a moderate to large risk to their health and well-being. Spotify, which has 3,000 U.S. employees, says they can now work from anywhere.
But what we're aiming for is that 100% freedom and flexibility.
Chief HR Officer Katarina Berg says the pandemic proved their new model will work long term.
Productivity and efficiency did not go down. I think it is the future of work. I think that is what we're going to see in some industries and businesses earlier and in some others a bit later.
This last year has shifted priorities for both companies and employees. They've also changed for Martinez.
We'd all come home exhausted, we'd barely have a conversation. But now we're all together all the time, working together, taking time and benefiting from it tremendously. People are starting to value the moments we have together. That's something that maybe we were taking for granted for a minute there.
And that was Vanessa Yerkovich reporting. Be sure to subscribe to the KPBS page on YouTube. You can stream all of our reporter stories, podcasts, and full episodes of KPBS Evening Edition. And that's all for this special edition of KPBS News. I'm Maya Trabulsi. For all of us here at KPBS, thanks for joining us.